Namaste and greetings, and welcome to the Center for Spiritually Integrated Arts, a Centers for Spiritual Living teaching center. I'm Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson, the founding minister and spiritual director. If you ever have questions about who I am, who we are, what we do, what is Spiritually Integrated Arts? What is a teaching center? What is Centers for Spiritual Living? What is metaphysical spirituality? What is New Thought? Science of Mind and Spirit? How do I become a member? How can I support, tithe, and donate? All of these questions and so many more. Send an email. You have two options. SIAADMIN, Spiritually Integrated Arts, admin at spirituallyintegratederarts.org, or spirituallyintegratederarts@gmail.com. Either of those will work. You can also visit our website, www.spirituallyintegratederarts.org. Now, you may be wondering, where else can I find and follow? There are several other social media platforms that you can also subscribe and follow. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and our YouTube channel, where you can also find all of our Sunday messages and more. I look forward to hearing from you soon. I look forward to you being a part of this beloved community. Because we are a virtual community, it doesn't matter where in the world you are. This can also be your spiritual community, because you can have more than one. Anywhere that you feel supported, anywhere you are spiritually fed is home, is community, is relationship. So I look forward to dialoguing more, conversing more, getting to know you. Much love and appreciation. Live long and prosper. Chat with you soon. Take care. Namaste and greetings. October 15th, still playing with the paradox, and today we are shaking up our world view. We are no longer going to be complacent and comfortable with the collective consciousness that we've been indoctrinated into. We're going to shake it up, evolve, spiral, transform, because paradox calls us to be both curious and vulnerable. We are often taught that knowing and being right are more important, more valuable than being curious. We are also taught that we should only show the best parts of ourselves to the world, giving people the social media highlight reel rather than the real life behind the scenes confusion and chaos and messiness that often truly exists. Which reminds me, there's an article in, if I'm not mistaken, it's the magazine Spirituality and Health, and they're interviewing an artist who does a lot of ancestral spiritual divine feminine related artwork. And one of the things he says is that when he was learning to be an artist, when he was studying his craft, it was okay to simply, quote unquote, have a hobby, to explore his art. Whereas what he has noticed is over the years, especially now, people are less likely to do that because they have been conditioned to believe that anything they create has to be perfect, which is why we have the social media highlight reel, because we believe that we have to portray ourselves as somehow better than, we're like giving the airbrushed version of our lives, the Adobe Photoshop version of our lives, where if there are wrinkles, airbrush them out. If there's too much weight, airbrush it down. If there's not enough weight, airbrush it up. Fill the cheeks, make them more rosy. We are not allowed to be real and authentic. We have to be fake. Well, well, that's a worldview that it's time to shake up. Playing with paradoxes offers us the ability to stay open to a vast variety of perspectives, to be in the space of, I don't know, and to be vulnerable and in the mystery of uncertainty, approaching the unanswerable questions of the universe with a sense of playfulness, receptivity, and joy provides us with a unique opportunity to simply be whatever we are, wherever we are in the moment, without the need to be perfect, without the need to be quote unquote right, or even to know what right actually is. Simply to be. Breathe. Worldview. Now, generally, a worldview is a belief system that shapes the perceptions, the values, and the actions of an individual. And here are several types of and examples of things that affect or types of worldviews. Now, the question is regarding your worldview. What is it? Do you have a moral absolutist worldview? It is very binary. This is right, this is wrong. Lying is wrong, period. But what if telling a lie saves a life? It's better for them to die than to lie. So there's moral absolutism where it's no, lying is bad, stealing is wrong. But what if you're stealing bread to stay alive? Stealing is wrong. It is better for you to starve, right? So moral absolutism, this is absolutism. This is right, this is wrong, period, case closed, no discussion. So simply go through and ask yourself, well, what is my worldview? What do I believe about the environment? What do I believe about religion? What do I believe about ethics and morals? And where did that belief come from? Was I conditioned to believe it? Or did I reach a point in my life where I purposefully and consciously chose that? Dr. Holmes says, now we must open up the doors of our consciousness and expand and expand and expand. And no longer think in terms of the backyard lot, but in terms of the infinite nature, in terms of the universe. Oftentimes we focus on our tiny little plot of space, simply where we work, simply where we live, simply the relationships and the friendships that we have. And we don't go outside of that. We think within the confines of that box. Whereas let us be reminded that when one of Walt Disney's nephews was asked if Walt Disney were here today and someone were to say to him, Mr. Disney, what do you believe regarding the concept of think outside of the box? And the nephew, without missing a beat, responded, oh, Uncle Walt would say, box? What box? Shaking up our worldview is removing the box. When there is no room, there are no walls, there's no ceiling, there is simply the open expansiveness of. There's a haiku, which I don't remember verbatim, but it references this gentleman's barn or house burns down. And his attitude in looking up is, ah, the moon, the stars. Are we willing to expand beyond the backyard? Are we willing to expand and expand and expand and think in terms of and embody the energy of the universe? Is that not why we say to be open at the top, as we said, what was it, last week? To be open at the top and open at the bottom, to be receptive to everything that is nourishing us in a life affirming way. And in order to do this, we have to shake up our worldview. There are people that many of us would rather not have a conversation with. And there are people we don't mind having a conversation with them. We just haven't made the effort to do so. How many transgender people have you sat down with and had a conversation with? How many gay people have you? Gay people of color, gay bilingual people, people who are Catholic, people who are Jewish, people who are atheists. How many of us have actually sat down with a Muslim individual and had a conversation? It doesn't even have to be a conversation about faith, about what we believe, about who you are. What do you like? Tell me about yourself. What are your dreams? How many of us have had those conversations and shared with them ours? But the general worldview is no, you stay within your own. You stay within your own small, tight knit circle of who looks like you, who believes like you, who sings like you, who eats what you eat. Do not go across the railroad tracks. Do not go outside. Do not go over there. Do not. What is that? What is this you eat? We don't eat that kind of thing. Why? Shaking up the worldview says, I understand that we are all individualized expressions of the one, and I am willing to connect with the one as it shows up as you. I am willing to connect with the one as it shows up as this group or that group, that political affiliation, that religious affiliation, that cultural affiliation. I am willing to shake up my worldview. I'm willing to explore things about science that I may not know, open at the top and the bottom. I'm willing to explore things about art I may not know, open at the top and open at the bottom. I am willing to explore the depths of my emotional self that I may not be aware of, that I may have pushed into a closet somewhere because it's too painful or it's not the social media highlight reel. But I am willing to be open at the top and open at the bottom and bring it right here in front of me to share being vulnerable. So, as Dr. Holmes said, to be open minded, to open the doors of our minds, to open the doors of our consciousness. So, for a moment, let's talk about this general idea. Close minded people regarding challenging ideas often do not want their ideas challenged. whereas open minded people tend to be far more curious about why there is a disagreement or a challenge in the first place. Closed minded people tend to make statements about what is rather than ask questions. Open minded people genuinely believe I could be wrong, or there's something that I simply don't know or don't understand. So I am willing to ask questions to seek greater information to learn and to connect. Closed minded people tend to focus more on, I need you to understand me, rather than I want to understand you, which open minded people find there's a strong empathic desire to connect and relate and understand through another person's life experiences. Closed minded people have very challenging, a lot of trouble. They don't want to even entertain the idea of holding two seemingly paradoxical thoughts or ideas simultaneously. For example, I believe in the Bible and evolution. Closed minded people are like, nope, it's one or the other. Either I believe in believe in evolution, dinosaurs and all, or I believe in the Bible and creation story. There's no way it could be both and I'm not saying it is. I'm saying closed-minded people cannot hold the possibility of, well, is it possible to believe in evolution and still find the Bible to be a worthy document that supports my spirituality? Open-minded people can and are willing to take in various thoughts. I am able to sit down and entertain what someone thinks about, oh, so you said what? Oh, you're a Satanist. Tell me, I don't know anything about what it means to practice Satanism. Oh, you say you're an atheist. Well, I've met some atheists and not all of them believe the same thing. What is your experience of being an atheist? Even within science of mind and spirit, not everybody believes the same thing. So open minded people are willing to let me, oh, you believe the world is flat. Okay, tell me more. I don't believe it, but I am able to, oh, that's fascinating. Oh, there's other ways to look at it. There are other ways to perceive life. There are other ways to experience life. And open minded people are able and willing to entertain, willing to partake of the vast plethora before them. Closed minded people tend to lack humility, whereas open minded people approach darn near everything with deep seated humility. Because once again, they understand that I could be wrong. I don't know everything. I am willing to learn and willing to connect. Breathe. Because if our call is to be open minded, our call is to keep the doors of our consciousness open, our call is to be open at the top and the bottom, then let's have more paradoxical conversations. Let's be willing to entertain, to partake of vast possibilities. When someone says they're playing devil's advocate, that's in essence what they're doing. They're shaking up a worldview in the conversation. Dr. Holmes says, what we must avoid, however, is the confusion which arises from a belief in final revelations, from the belief that all truth is at last discovered, or that someone, single person, or some one single system of thought has finally arrived at and has delivered the final word. We now have all the answers regarding science. This is the undisputed word of God. I am the savior of, and you must follow me to the promised land. Say, what now? There are no final revelations because we are the expression of, and all life is the expression of, ever evolving consciousness. That in and of itself means change upon change, expand upon expansion, ever growing, ever transforming, ever changing. There is no finality of, there is none. So let's stop even looking for the final word, the final belief. There are no finalities in any science or philosophy or religion or life experience per se. Through the continual emergence of the creative principle, any last finality proves to be simply the beginning of a new creative series. This eternal spiral, finding its base in the everlasting reality, will never cease to emerge. And what it is, you are. So, how do we shake up our worldview about that? Breathe. So, not too long ago, my brother from another mother, fellow minister, Reverend Ogun Holder, who is a unity minister, shared on social media this passage and this quote. And I want us to dive into it because Reverend Ogun goes somewhere where most New Thought folks won't go. Reverend Ogun says of this quote, so let's go back for a second. The quote, "You can quickly be released from the prison of pain or grief if you will sing and praise and pray." Reverend Ogun says, a quote like this tells us, and I picked certain things, so I suggest if you want to see the whole thing in context, read his whole thing. But I picked certain things that I want us to highlight, shaking up the worldview. A quote like this tells us that positivity and affirmations are tools to avoid the pain and the process of grief. It implies we shouldn't accept the feelings that arise from loss. It sets us up to feel like spiritual failures. Pause on that one. It sets us up to feel like spiritual failures if we sing and praise and pray, yet still feel sad, still feel angry. It invalidates our experience. It erases us. It's both spiritual bypassing and spiritual abuse. Participants of a healthy movement have to question, shake up the worldview, and critique, and if necessary, or I would say, and when necessary, condemn and amend its principles. Otherwise, they become dogmatic benchmarks. Breathe. He goes on to say, grief is not a prison to escape from. And while we don't want to be stuck in the most debilitating periods of it, it can't be rushed. It has to unfold in its own time. And often we need the help of others. Pause. Remember, S. Kelly Harrell says, we do not heal in isolation. We heal in community. Reverend Ogun goes on to say, yes, we can experience moments, even seasons of joy and pleasure during our most intense times of grief. But that doesn't mean our grieving is done. Such is the both and complexity and the nuance of healing from loss. Grief is a spiritual practice. And finally, he goes on to say, What is a spiritual practice other than a repeated activity or process that enables us to meet and to know the deepest parts of ourselves? And in so doing, meet and know all that is, which is sometimes called God. To surrender to grief means we feel and express every emotion that comes up as often as it comes up. There's no need to suppress it or deny it. And let those emotions be the turn by turn directions that lead us to the parts of us that require the most healing. To heal is to make peace with what is, to cease struggling against the current experience, and to release any desire that the loss never happened, that they never left, that they never died. And this is in part from an article he wrote for Unity magazine, Grief as a Spiritual Practice. So I invite you to go read the full article and then ask, what is my worldview regarding grief, sadness, loss? Am I unwilling to condemn, amend, evolve beyond the concepts of old new thought? Now, yes, you can quickly be, we have to take the Charles Fillmore quote in context. This is not an all or nothing statement. But is it, there are times we are going to say things that, for linguistic convenience, do not fully convey everything we want to say. So we give short little snippets of where our mind is at the time. And very easily, if one were to sit down with Charles and ask him, so, explain, he very well may have shared a lot of what Reverend Ogun shared. Maybe. But the point is, there are a lot of people within New Thought, within religion, who will take a cherry picked phrase and then traumatize others with it. I've shared with you before, there were some folks in New Thought that asked me what was in my consciousness, one, when I was called the N word several years ago. What was in my consciousness that created prostate cancer? Why would I do that? Why would I have in my consciousness, oh, so you're actually saying that I created this? That the Africans who were kidnapped, brought to the Americas, and forced into slave labor, it was their consciousness, but not the collective consciousness, not the colonization consciousness. See, very often we cherry pick and then we try to oversimplify with this moral absolutist paradigm of either or. Either you created it or, okay, I hear what you're saying, but it's not that simple. And anytime we deny someone's experience, grief, loss, anger, whatever it is, confusion, anytime we deny them their experience, as Reverend Ogun said, there's this idea of it's abuse, it's spiritual bypassing, it's spiritual malpractice, and it's spiritual abuse. How are you going to tell somebody that they don't have a right to experience what they're experiencing, that they shouldn't experience what they're experiencing? Versus, let's ask the question, share with me, what is it that you feel? Share with me, what are your thoughts? Talk to me. Let us converse about this. And in the actual looking at it and feeling it and addressing it, we increase the energy of healing, which is a process. There is no necessary finality of, I am healed. Healing is an ongoing, like breathing is an ongoing, evolving is an ongoing. So let's shake up our worldview regarding that and have a trauma-informed spirituality where we meet people exactly where they are. Grief is not a prison to escape from, and grief is a spiritual practice when we shake up our worldview regarding it and practice it as such. Thomas More offers us care of the soul means not taking sides when there is a conflict at a deep level. It may be necessary to stretch the heart wide enough to embrace contradiction and paradox. How do we expand to envelop all possibilities for our healing, for manifesting the beloved community? Because if we take sides, it's either or. Then how do we ever come together? My religion is right, yours is wrong. I'm taking sides with my belief system, my religious upbringing, not yours. Then how do we come together? Collectively as community? Because community doesn't mean we all have to be homogenous, that we all have to be carbon copies of one another. Who said that? Do not the foods that we eat have varying tastes? Brussels sprouts don't have to taste like carrots to be on the same plate as part of the same meal. And both offer various nutritional things to the body. So why would we compartmentalize relationships and love and philosophy and wisdom, creativity, shaking up the worldview? Now, regarding this idea of emotions, since we were talking about sadness and grief, it's helpful to recognize what emotions are. It's helpful to recognize how we feel what we feel. So, emotions are psychological states that are comprised of our thoughts, our feelings, physiological changes, expressive behaviors, and the inclinations to act. Now, choosing sides. There are some emotions that are referred to as negative and others that are referred to as positive. Is this accurate? Because I would ask, well, is pride a positive emotion? Pride cometh before the fall. Is that not a quote that is often stated? Pridefulness. Well, okay, wait a minute, but it's on the side of the positive. And sadness. Well, we just heard that grief is a spiritual practice, so sadness isn't necessarily negative. And even the concept of positive and negative, yin yang, is it not more, well, which emotions are life affirming? Because sadness can be life affirming and pride can be non life affirming when done to excess. Anything that is to excess, the middle way, the third way, a state of moderation and balance is always what's best, ideally. So, whatever the emotions are, is it in moderation? Because if I'm so happy that I refuse to acknowledge sadness, then my happiness, quote unquote, is no longer life affirming because it's forcing me to deny some other aspect of my life and my experiences. If I am so grateful that I find gratitude in everything, I was beaten up last week and I'm so grateful that they sent me to the hospital. I'm so grateful that they broke my occipital orbit. And what? Are you really great? Well, yes, because we only evolve when we're suffering. So I'm grateful for the suffering that they put me in. That's no longer life affirming. Because if that's your worldview, if that's the paradigm you're operating from, then you are going to purposefully put yourself into suffering situations because you believe that it forces you to grow. And that's not accurate. not true. It's not life affirming. So, whatever the emotions are, feel them, acknowledge them, balance them. Albert Einstein says the important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. Ask, expand. Ask and expand. Ask some more and expand some more. Be curious. Be curious. Curiosity invites us into deeper awareness. Curiosity invites us into the place of, recently we talked about the Zen koan and how it is a great way to play with paradoxes. Curiosity gives us the space to, open up and entertain. What might this mean? What might this be offering me? What deeper truth or deeper awareness is this availing me? How can I be more vulnerable to explore my worldview and move beyond the boundaries that were imposed upon me? So let's talk about one of my favorite Zen koans. It's about three monks. Two monks are arguing about a flag that is flying in the wind, flapping in the wind. And one monk says to the other, "The flag is moving." The other monk says, "No, the wind is moving." At which time a third monk is walking by, and the third monk says, "No, you are both incorrect. What is moving is not the wind, nor is it the flag. What is moving is the mind." Bum, 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 bum. So which is moving? The flag, the wind, or the mind? Is mind moving the wind, which is moving the flag? Is the flag moving? It's like the whole idea of if a tree falls in the forest and no one is there, does it make a sound? If there's no one there, is there a tree? If no one is there, is there a forest? Quantum physics would say it is all infinite waves until the attention is brought to it and the wave form collapses and becomes shaking up the worldview. Simply being in a space of, wow, because our worldview wants to know the answer. Well, which one is moving? Our worldview wants to know the answer. Is there a sound? Can I prove there's a sound? If no one's there, because the moment I go and put a microphone there, I'm there. My awareness is still there. So while my presence may not be there, I am still connected to the there because I put a microphone there. And I'm listening, so I'm there. So clearly, if it falls, we can no longer say, well, if it falls and no one's there, because I am there. But what if I'm not there? What if no one is there? We could go down the rabbit hole on that one. F. Scott Fitzgerald says, the test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposed ideas in the mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function. This is one reason why those who are very Second Amendment guns, they can't even hold the be a gun owner, but be a safe, effective, responsible gun owner. Because in their mind, this means when they hear be responsible, they hear you want to take away my guns. No, we're saying that one, if you're going to have guns, be responsible. If you're going to have guns, there should be a background check. There should be a waiting period. Well, no, you're impinging on my rights. So let's think about this. In order to drive a car, is there not a test? And a car is a vehicle, it's not a weapon. car is a vehicle to move you from point A to point B. A gun is used to destroy a life or destroy a target, right? It's not to get you from point A to point B. But driving, you have to take a test. You have to pass a test. But to get a gun, you don't. To become a barber, you have to get a license to cut someone's hair. But in many places, you don't need a license to get a gun, right? So follow the idea. There are many people who cannot hold these ideas in the same space and be able to function. Their worldview is no, it has to be one way and only one way. And I cannot entertain the possibilities of anything else because I feel my worldview shaking. And so they do their best to refortify an ineffective, less life affirming, judgmental, critical, biased worldview that actually causes more harm in the world. Shake up the worldview. Be willing to have those difficult and challenging conversations with others and with your own self. Guy Finney says, it's a paradox of the true spiritual path, but the more conscious we become of what limits us, the more limitless becomes our life. Say what, Guy? It is a paradox of the true spiritual path that the more conscious we become of what limits us, the more limitless our life becomes. Step into the paradox. Because stepping in gives us the understanding of. See, when you understand how gravity works, then you're able to push against and use gravity and quote unquote defy gravity to be a gymnast, to fly a plane, to create a space shuttle, to make a paper airplane, because you understand certain things about how this thing called gravity affects flying a kite. You understand certain things about dynamics and wind, and you know the limits. That's how you know how much tension to pull. Because as you do it, as you test it, you realize if I'm too slack, the kite falls. If I'm too tight, the kite, yeah. So you begin to understand what is the limit. And as I understand now, then you are able to push beyond. You're able to use, and then you find the limit, the perceived limit, no longer affects me in the way that it once did. Breathe. As much as we seek to avoid feeling uncomfortable, very often the discomfort, when used effectively, is offering us the opportunity to grow, to heal, and to evolve. When people become too comfortable with things as they are, they cling to the things to which they are attached. And they will often deny the very things that could liberate them or others. Remember the call to afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted. Shake up the worldview. When people are too comfortable and they are attached, shake it up. And when people need healing, offer healing. Shake up the worldview, individually and collectively, so that we can challenge what needs to be challenged, amend what needs to be amended, abolish what needs to be abolished, and create what needs to be created. This week's declaration or affirmation, I will say it first, and then if you agree, if you are in alignment, say it with me on the second go round. I am curious and vulnerable as I explore paradoxes in my life. Together. I am curious and vulnerable as I explore paradoxes in my life. And so it is. This week's questions. 1. What conversations are you unwilling to have because they require vulnerability, transparency, or they require exploring something you have been taught not to question or to discuss, such as money? You don't talk about money. You don't talk about politics. You don't talk about religion. You don't talk about sex. Number 2, what are some beliefs that you are unwilling to question? Number 3, what beliefs do you hold that are unshakable? Is there something that you feel that you know, and you know that you know it, and no matter what challenges come to you, that foundation is unshakable, unbreakable, because it may shake? Or are you unwilling to shake it? Number 4, what is something that you have been curious about, but you have yet to explore? Curious about acting, curious about art, curious about starting your own business, curious about healing, whatever it is, curious about becoming a practitioner. Yeah, but I'll do it later. And lastly, where, when, and with whom do you feel most vulnerable and unsafe? Where do you feel most vulnerable and unsafe? When do you feel most vulnerable and unsafe? With whom do you feel most vulnerable and unsafe? That's 1. And now, where do you feel most vulnerable and safe? With whom do you feel most vulnerable and safe? When do you feel most vulnerable and safe? Breathe. Anchoring into the infinite awareness that what we are is evolving consciousness, and that there are no finalities in this thing called life, because there is only one life, and that life is God, and that life is ever expanding consciousness, ever creativity creating. And what it is, we are. So any worldview of the collective consciousness that is not life affirming, that is life denying, that is based in judgment, criticism, that is based in bigotry, that is based in traumatizing another, suppressing another, enslaving another, any of that consciousness, we shake the worldview so that we are set free. That this liberation theology that is science of mind and spirit moves us into greater expansive healing of ourselves and of others. That the door to our mind, the door to our consciousness, the door to our heart is ever open. That we are open at the top, open at the bottom, willing to engage in the spiritual practices of joy as well as grief. That we are willing to engage in the spiritual practices of conversation, even with those who are quote unquote unlike ourselves. We are willing to dialogue. We are willing to listen. We are open minded, open hearted. We are open. Open to all of the ways that God is God. The law says yes. We breathe. We receive. We act accordingly. And so it is. Much love and appreciation, everybody. Take care and see you over in Zoom.